You're standing in a throne room that has belonged to your family for 257 years. The walls are covered in gold leaf. Icons of Christ and the Virgin stare down from every corner. The marble floor beneath your feet was walked by emperors, by saints, by your father and his father before him. You are Princess Anna Komnene of Trebizond. You're 14 years old. And in less than an hour, this throne room will belong to someone else. Outside the palace walls, you can hear the Ottoman army, 80,000 soldiers surrounding a city of 4,000 defenders. They've been here for 32 days. Your father, Emperor David, has just made a decision that will haunt your bloodline forever. He's going to surrender, not because the walls have fallen, not because the army has been defeated, because the Sultan sent a message. Surrender now, and your family will live. Resist, and every man will die, every woman will be taken, every child will watch their parents slaughtered before being sold. Your father chose life. He doesn't know yet what that life will cost. The doors open. Ottoman soldiers enter the throne room. Their commander approaches your father, not with a sword, but with a smile. The terms are generous, he says. The Sultan is merciful. Then his eyes move to you, to your sisters, to your mother. He looks at you the way a merchant looks at silk. August 15, 1461. The fall of Trebizond, the last Greek empire, the final remnant of Byzantium, erased in a single afternoon. Your father will be executed 2 years later, along with your brothers. Your mother will die in captivity, watching everything she loved destroyed. But you're 14 and beautiful, and the daughter of an emperor. The Sultan has plans for you, and what those plans were, the historians of the time couldn't bring themselves to write. This is what the Ottomans did to Christian princesses. Not peasant women, not common slaves. The daughters of emperors, the sisters of kings, the women born to rule, reduced to property in a single generation. If this story grabs you, hit the like button. One click helps us keep uncovering the voices history tried to silence. But before you understand what happened to Anna and her sisters, you need to understand why the Ottomans targeted royal women specifically. It wasn't random, it was policy. When the Ottomans conquered a Christian kingdom, they faced a problem. They could kill every member of the ruling family, but that created martyrs. It gave the conquered people something to rally around. A dead king becomes a saint, a murdered prince becomes a symbol. But a living princess, taken into the Sultan's harem, converted to Islam, bearing Muslim children, that was different. That was erasure. The Ottoman harem wasn't what Western imagination turned it into. It wasn't simply a place of pleasure. It was a political institution. The most powerful institution in the empire, some historians argue. The Sultan's mother, the valid Sultan, often wielded more power than the Grand Vizier. The Sultan's favorite concubine could influence policy, start wars, end dynasties, and every single one of these powerful women had been a slave. Many of them had been princesses. The Ottomans understood something about conquest that others missed. You can take a man's kingdom in a day, but to take his bloodline, his legacy, his future generations, that takes a generation, and it starts with his daughters. The system worked like this. When a Christian kingdom fell, Ottoman officials counted the royal family with the same precision they used for treasury gold. Who was the king? Who were his sons? Who were his daughters? What were their ages? Were they married? Were they virgins? Sons were a problem to be solved. They could grow up to lead rebellions. They could become symbols for resistance. The Ottomans had a simple solution: execution, usually within a few years of conquest, sometimes immediately, sometimes after a period of comfortable imprisonment that lulled the family into false hope. Daughters were an opportunity. A princess between 12 and 20 was worth more than her weight in gold. Not because of ransom. The Ottomans rarely accepted ransom for royal women. Because of what she represented. Take a princess into the imperial harem, convert her to Islam, give her to the Sultan or to a favored general, let her bear children. Now the bloodline that once ruled a Christian kingdom flows through Ottoman veins. The grandsons of Byzantine emperors become Ottoman princes. The great-granddaughters of Serbian kings become mothers of sultans. Within 3 generations, the conquered dynasty isn't destroyed. It's absorbed, transformed, turned against everything it once stood for. That's what happened to the princesses of Trebizond. But the story doesn't end there. What came next was deliberately left out of every official chronicle. Subscribe to the Obscure Chronicles. We don't flinch from history's darkest chapters. Anna Komnene and her sisters were taken from Trebizond in August 1461. The journey to Constantinople took 3 weeks. They traveled not in chains that would have damaged valuable property, but in covered wagons, guarded at all times, never allowed to speak to anyone outside the Sultan's trusted servants. Their mother Helena traveled with them. She had been an empress, now she was cargo. When they arrived in Constantinople, they were taken to the Topkapi Palace, not to the public areas where diplomats and officials conducted business, to the harem, the forbidden interior where no foreign man had ever set foot. The Byzantine historian Darkas, writing a few years later, says the sisters were distributed among the Ottoman elite. He uses that word specifically. Distributed. Like supplies. Like spoils. Anna, the eldest and most beautiful, was reserved for Sultan Mehmed II himself. Mehmed was 29 years old. He had conquered Constantinople 8 years earlier. He spoke 6 languages. He read Greek philosophy and Persian poetry. He considered himself the heir to Rome, to Alexander, to all the empires of the ancient world. He was also a man who took what he wanted. The chroniclers are careful here. They describe Anna entering the harem. They describe Mehmed's interest in her. They describe her position in the palace hierarchy. They don't describe what happened in the private chambers. They didn't need to. Every reader understood. A 14-year-old girl, the conqueror of her empire. No possibility of refusal. No one to help her. No law that protected her. The Italian merchant Giacomo Delanguski, who had contacts inside the Ottoman court, wrote that Anna was much favored by the Sultan for several years. Favored, another careful word. Think about what that meant. Every night, wondering if this would be the night. Every day, performing gratitude for the man who had destroyed everything she loved. Smiling at the murder of her brothers. Bearing children who would be raised to worship a god she had been taught was false. That was the life of an Ottoman princess. Not the life she was born to. The life she was taken into. But Anna wasn't alone. The Ottoman harem was filled with women like her. Mara Brankovic, Serbian princess given to Sultan Murad II in 1435 as part of a peace treaty. Her father, Despot Hurak Brankovic, handed his own daughter to the Ottomans to buy a few more years of independence for Serbia. Mara was 15 when she entered the harem. She spent 16 years as Murad's wife, not his legal wife. Islamic law forbade the Sultan from marrying a Christian who refused to convert. Murad refused. Throughout her entire captivity, she refused to convert to Islam. This made her position dangerous. She had the status of a consort but not the legal protection of a wife. She could be discarded at any moment. She survived through intelligence, through charm, through making herself useful. When Murad died in 1451, Mara faced a choice. His son, the new Sultan Mehmed II, the same Mehmed who would later conquer Constantinople, offered to marry her. She refused. This was almost unheard of. A woman in the harem refusing the Sultan. It should have meant death, or at least harsh punishment. But Mara had played the game perfectly. She had cultivated relationships throughout the Ottoman court. She had made herself valuable as a diplomat, as an intermediary between the Ottomans and the Christian kingdoms she still had connections to. Mehmed let her go. She retired to a monastery in Serbia where she lived another 37 years, never marrying, never returning to the harem. She was one of the few who escaped. Most weren't so fortunate. Olivera Despina, another Serbian princess. Her story is worse. In 1389, the Ottoman Sultan Bayezid I crushed the Serbian army at the Battle of Kosovo. Prince Lazar, the Serbian leader, was captured and beheaded on the battlefield. His severed head was displayed as a trophy. As part of the settlement that followed, Lazar's daughter Olivera was given to Bayezid as a concubine. Let that sink in. Her father's head was still being displayed when she was handed over to his killer. She was 17 years old. Olivera spent the next 13 years in Bayezid's harem. The records say she became his favorite, his most trusted companion, that she traveled with him on military campaigns. Something almost unheard of for harem women. Was this Stockholm Syndrome? Survival strategy? Genuine feeling? We'll never know. The chronicles are written by men who saw women as objects, not subjects. They describe Olivera's beauty, her influence, her position. They never describe her thoughts, her grief, her rage. In 1402, Bayezid was defeated and captured by Timur Tamerlane, the Central Asian conqueror. The records describe what happened next in horrifying detail. Timur forced Olivera to serve wine at his victory banquet, naked, while Bayezid watched from a cage. This was deliberate humiliation, not just of Bayezid but of Olivera herself, the Serbian princess who had spent 13 years building a place for herself in the Ottoman court, stripped of everything in a single night. Bayezid died in captivity shortly after. Olivera was eventually released and returned to Serbia, where she spent her remaining years in a monastery. She never spoke publicly about her time in the harem. Whatever she endured, she buried with her. But here's what the chronicles don't tell you. For every princess whose name we know, there were dozens whose names were never recorded. When Constantinople fell in 1453, the Byzantine nobility wasn't just the imperial family, it was hundreds of aristocratic houses, each with daughters, sisters, nieces. The Byzantine historian Critavolis, who later served Mehmed II, describes the aftermath. The soldiers fell on the city in swarms. They sought out the hidden places, the houses of the wealthy, the convents and monasteries. They took everything of value, and they took the women. He lists categories: noble women, nuns, wives of officials, daughters of merchants. He doesn't list names, there were too many. The Italian Leonard of Chios, who survived the siege, wrote that noble women of the highest birth were seen in the slave markets within days of the city's fall. Some were purchased by Ottoman officials, some were sent to harems across the empire, some were sold to merchants from Egypt, from Persia, from as far away as Central Asia. One Byzantine princess might end up in the Sultan's palace. Another might end up in a provincial governor's household in Anatolia. Another might be sold 3 or 4 times, each sale taking her further from anything she had ever known. Within a generation they were untraceable. Their children spoke Turkish or Arabic or Persian. Their grandchildren didn't know they carried the blood of Byzantine emperors. That was the point. The princesses of Trebizond met similar fates. Anna, the eldest, remained in the imperial harem for several years. Then she disappears from the records. No record of her death, no record of children, just silence. Her younger sisters were distributed to Ottoman generals and officials. One chronicle mentions a princess of Trebizond in the household of a governor in Bursa. Another mentions a woman of the Komnenoi married to a cavalry commander in Thessaloniki. Married is probably the wrong word. Taken, given, assigned. Their mother Helena died in captivity. The date is unknown, the circumstances are unknown. She simply stops appearing in the records. Their brothers were kept alive for 2 years, just long enough to make the family believe the Sultan's promise of mercy was genuine. Then, in 1463, Mehmed found a pretext, an alleged conspiracy, and executed them all. David Komnenos, the last emperor of Trebizond, watched his sons die before being killed himself. The women weren't executed. They didn't need to be. They were already dead in every way that mattered. Their families destroyed, their faith under constant pressure, their bodies belonging to men they hadn't chosen. Death would have been a release. That's why it wasn't offered. Some princesses tried to resist. Theodora Cantacuzene, a Byzantine noblewoman seized after 1453, reportedly refused to eat when she was placed in an Ottoman household. She starved herself for weeks until her captors became concerned about losing their investment. They force-fed her. She survived. Eventually, according to one account, she accepted her situation. What choice did she have? The Venetian diplomat Niccolo Sagandino wrote about a Serbian princess. He doesn't name her, who threw herself from a window rather than be taken to a provincial governor's bed. She survived the fall. Broken bones, permanent injuries. They took her anyway. The chroniclers present these stories as curiosities, interesting anecdotes about the stubbornness of Christian women. They don't seem to understand what they're describing. Resistance in a situation where resistance was impossible. These women couldn't fight. They couldn't flee. They couldn't appeal to any law or any authority. The only weapon they had was their own bodies, and even that weapon was taken from them. But here's what the Ottomans never understood. They thought they were erasing these bloodlines, absorbing them. turning Christian princesses into Muslim mothers whose descendants would strengthen the empire. They were half right. The blood of Byzantine emperors did flow into Ottoman veins. The granddaughters of Serbian kings did become mothers of sultans, but blood carries memory. In the 16th century, the Ottoman Empire was ruled by Suleiman the Magnificent. His mother, Hafsa Sultan, was almost certainly of Crimean Tatar origin, possibly with Byzantine or Genoese blood. His favorite consort, Harem Sultan, the famous Roxolana, was captured from what is now Ukraine. She may have been of Ruthenian nobility. His daughter-in-law Nurbana Sultan, who would later rule the empire as regent, was captured from the Venetian island of Paros. She was likely of noble Greek or Italian descent. By the time the empire reached its height, the Ottoman dynasty was as much European as Turkish, as much Christian in origin as Muslim. The sultans who built mosques and waged jihad against Christian kingdoms carried the blood of the princesses their ancestors had captured. Think about that. The conquest was never complete. The erasure was never total. Every princess taken into the harem brought something with her that couldn't be converted or absorbed: her blood, her memory, her descendants. In 2015, genetic researchers conducted a study of modern populations in Turkey and the Balkans. They found that a significant percentage of Turkish DNA comes from European and Byzantine sources, not from Central Asian Turkic peoples, from the conquered populations of Anatolia and the Balkans. The researchers estimated that over 500 years of Ottoman rule, millions of Christian women were taken into Turkish households, not just as slaves, as wives, as concubines, as mothers. Their descendants are alive today, millions of them, in Turkey, in Greece, in the Balkans, across the world. The princesses of Trebizond have no monuments, no feast days. No one remembers their names, but their DNA remembers. Their bloodlines survived. The Ottoman Empire tried to erase them, and instead absorbed them so completely that modern Turkey is built on their bones. The last Christian princess taken by the Ottomans was probably captured in the 17th century. By then, there weren't many Christian kingdoms left to conquer. But the system continued in other forms. Raiding parties took women from villages in Hungary, in Poland, in Ukraine. Pirates captured noble women from Italian and Spanish ships. The harem always needed new blood. The practice only ended when the empire itself ended. In 1909, the Young Turks deposed Sultan Abdülhamid II. In 1922, the Ottoman Empire was formally abolished. The harem was disbanded. The women inside were released or pensioned. Some returned to families they hadn't seen in decades. Some had no families left to return to. The last survivors died in the 1930s and 1940s. Old women who remembered being taken as girls from villages in the Caucasus, from towns in the Balkans, from places that no longer existed as they remembered them. They took their stories to their graves. Anna Komnene of Trebizond has no grave. No one knows where she died. No one knows when. No one knows if she had children, or what happened to them if she did. The last princess of the last Greek Empire vanished into the Ottoman machine. Her father's palace is now a museum in Trebizond, Turkey. Tourists take photographs. They admire the frescoes, the architecture, the view of the Black Sea. They don't know about Anna. The guides don't mention her. The plaques don't include her name, but she was here. She walked these floors. She prayed in this chapel. She looked out these windows at the sea and wondered if anyone would ever come to save her. No one did. She saved herself the only way anyone could, by outlasting them, by enduring, by becoming someone else in order to stay alive. The Ottomans wanted her erased. But here we are, 564 years later, saying her name, Anna Komnene of Trebizond, princess, captive survivor. We don't know her fate. We only know she existed. And now, because you watched this far, you know too. If this reached you, subscribe to the Obscure Chronicles. We dig into the chapters history tried to erase. Because the past isn't dead. It's waiting in the dark, waiting for someone to remember. We don't look away.